Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where my intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. You see, there's never been a shortage of Black male role models. There's only been a lack of exposure of those role models in mainstream media. So my intention is to showcase and highlight Black men who are doing remarkable things in the world. And my guest tonight is doing just that. His name is Kyle Jones, and he is an author who is committed to empowering youth to reach their full potential. He's also currently pursuing a career as a radiologist, and he is definitely committed to making a positive impact on the world. So, hello, Kyle, how are you?
Doing good. How about yourself, man?
Fantastic. So before we jump into your book, before we jump into your work, let's start off with a few icebreaker questions. So first of all, tell us where you're from.
So originally I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, born in the city of Atlanta.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about your family, whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Okay, so my mom, she's actually in IT. My dad, he was retired military, so he just stays home all day, just doing retired people things, going fishing, doing retired people things. And my brother, he's in school. He plays basketball. He goes to Cane Creek High School, very good high school, plays basketball for them. My oldest brother, he's in college with me, actually. He's doing IT just like my mom. And I'm in school for radiology, as like Mr. Taylor said. And that's pretty much about the family right there.
Nice. So now I'd like you to name a woman who's inspired you to be who you are.
Truly, can it be more than one woman?
I'll give you two.
Okay. So I want to say first my mother, and then I want to say also my teacher, Miss Miranda, who actually helped me author my book. And those two women actually inspired me and empowered me to continue striving in life and going hard on my book and in my career as a radiologist in pursuing radiology. So
nice. Nice. So name a man that you look up to and admire.
A man that I look up to and admire, that had to be my father, honestly. He's a strong working man, dedicated to what he does. Once his mind set to something, he's gonna do it. Like he doesn't let nothing distract him. And I like that. You know, I'm a straightforward guy myself, you know, cut and dry, you know what I mean? Like, hey, just get straight to it. No, straight to the point.
Now, what branch of the military was he in?
He was in the Army. He did what's it called? Logistics. So he's just goods and people and stuff like that.
Nice. Now, as an author, I'm sure you love books. So if you were trapped on an island for 30 days and you could only take one book with you, what book would you take while you were there on the island?
Truly and honestly, it might sound like an immature answer, but I would take Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Honestly, man, those books are very funny, very entertaining. It kind of reminds me of Greg. One of the characters' name is Greg. One of the main characters' name is Greg, and it's like his world is like his own island. You know what I mean? As he writes, he just talks about. He fantasizes. His books. The author's books is so good, and honestly, I'll just take that book on me with that island. Seriously.
Nice. Now, you like movies?
Oh yeah.
Name one of your favorite movies.
My favorite movie is Incredibles, the first one.
Ah, okay. Love Incredibles. Great movie.
Oh yeah.
So you love animation?
Oh yeah. I'm very fine on animation. I actually love anime. Sometimes if I see like really good animations captured, I'll like screenshot it, print it out, and I'll just look at them. I'll have like a whole folder full of just pictures from animes, just from the detailed graphics and how they draw it and stuff like that. It's very specific and fine to the eye, honestly.
Yeah. Now, I'm 61 years old, and I am not ashamed to admit I love animation. I love all of the Dixie Pixar films. I just absolutely love animation. There's just something about it. I'm a big movie buff in general. As you can look, if you can see over there, you can see my little Yoda guy back there. Oh. But I love movies in general, but there's something unique about animation that I just really, really love. It's like it brings out the kid in me. And I just really love watching animated movies. Now, if I were to grab your phone or your music player, who would I find on your playlist? Who are you listening to?
Playlist wise, I listen to a lot of classical music. Okay. There is no specific name to the classical. I'm more in it for the piano. I love piano. I always wanted to play the piano. I just love how it sounds. So there is no specific actual artist, or I should say musician, that I listen to. It's a variety of musicians that I listen to, because I just love hearing I love string music, put like that. I love harps. I love the piano mainly. And it's just something about that sound and that melody that I just love so much. So it's like, if you can play it right, I'll listen to it. You know what I mean? Like, long as you can play it right and it sounds really good and subtle to the ear of mine, and I'll listen to it for sure.
There you go. Now, if I gave you a magic wand and you could create anything your heart desired, what would your life look like 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I would say I will be in Whistler, Canada, somewhere in the forest. They're very, very beautiful forests that they keep up with. Like I'm talking about, they keep up with them. And I'll be somewhere in there, just living in the wilderness, close by a lake, so I can fish, of course, go kayaking or canoeing if I wanted to. Go walking, go hiking and stuff like that. So I really love nature, you know what I'm saying? I really like to be connected with that type of energy and that type of environment and space, you know?
Beautiful, beautiful. My wife and I just got back from Quebec, Canada, as a matter of fact, and we were celebrating our 20th anniversary. And for some reason, my wife has always had this bucket list item where she wanted to spend the night in an ice hotel. A hotel made completely out of ice. Now, I'm not a big cold weather guy, but I tell you, it was absolutely amazing, because in the hotel, there's like 44 different rooms. Mm-hmm. And each room has a different theme. So they carve into the walls these amazing sculptures and so forth. There was this bar that was about 20 feet long that was made out of solid ice, and it was carved so intricately and beautifully. It was an amazing experience. Had a great time. And spending in the night, I was a little concerned. So I'm thinking that I'm gonna have to go into, I'm sleeping on a block of ice, right? But there's obviously a mattress, but you sleep in these Arctic sleeping bags. And during the night, I actually had to unzip the bag because it got warm.
Wow.
But it was a great experience. Definitely one of those bucket list items. And if you love nature, it kind of connects you to all that. It's really nice. So, as a man who happens to be Black, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future in general?
I'm more so optimistic, like I am kind of looking forward to it, but in a way I can kind of like wait for it. You know what I mean? Like I can take my time. Like I don't want anything to be rushed. You know what I'm saying? Like because to me, if you rush stuff, it doesn't come out right, And as you see with a lot of things that is coming out lately, like with the Tesla, for example, they got the self-driving. It's something so futuristic. It sounds so good, but it's just not perfected enough for it to be out in society. You know what I'm saying? Out in public. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I love where it's going, but let's take our time. Let's perfect it first. You know what I'm saying? Let's get our craft perfected before we go into putting it out there.
Got it. But overall, in general, speaking in general terms, you're pretty optimistic about the future for
Oh,
yourself.
oh yeah, for me, for sure. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Now, I wrote a book called The Cure for Onlyness, a Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And in the book, I talked about the unique challenges that we as Black men have to deal with when we are in environments where we're the only person of color. So I'm sure you've probably had some experiences with that. So how do you deal with that?
You know, truly and honestly, I try not to look at it like that. You know what I mean? I try to look at it as we're all here to do one task. We're here to work, get a check, you know what I mean? And go home. Simple as that. But I mean, I also sometimes think like, man, I wish there was more African American males or African American women that worked at this environment instead of more Caucasian women or more Caucasian males. You know what I mean? Like I love to see that myself too. But to answer your question, how would I deal with that? Honestly, you know, I just kind of take a step back and I just examine my environment. I'm just like, is this the type of environment that I want to be in? Do I want to be around these groups, like just people, like, or do I want to go and surround myself with more of my kind of people, more African Americans? You know what I'm saying? Like, go find those types of jobs that has more of those people. You know what I mean? But like I said, I'm open to anything. I love what's it called? Going into new environments. You know, I'm very open armed. You know, open minded to do things. Put it like that.
So I'm curious from your personal perspective. Just again, we're looking through your eyes. Do you think race relations are getting worse or better in the United States? What are your thoughts?
You know, that's a good question. That truly is a good question, because there's a lot of things that implement those thoughts, as i.e. as media, people, and just really those two main things. So for me, I kind of veer. I'm going to answer your question. I kind of veer off from watching the media and stuff like that because
Good
of those.
idea. Good idea.
Because you know what I mean? Because of those reasons. Because if you allow that outside influence to infiltrate you, it starts to shift and play alchemy tricks with your mind. You know what I mean? Try to make you think negatively towards stuff, or make you start to see things like this instead of like how you were usually seeing it. So to answer your question, I truly do not know if things are getting better or worse. But from my perspective, generally, I feel as if, just for me only, I feel as if it's getting better. For me.
Interesting. Now, tell me, how old are you?
I'm 19 years old.
19. Okay. So as you think about your friends, the collection of friends that you have, I'm sure you've got a mix of friends, different races, different colors, and so forth. Overall, what's the feeling like, you think, in your group of friends? What's the overall feeling? I would assume younger generation. See, I'm from the 60s, so I remember segregation. I remember all of that, which you have no clue except what you may be reading in books. But from your circle of friends, do you get a sense that obviously there's a lot more diversity? Do you have a diverse group of friends yourself?
You know, honestly, I don't. Like, now that you put it like that and elaborated more on it, honestly, I really don't. Like, it's like we all have socially segregated ourselves.
Okay.
You know, and like, okay, this is who I am, so this is who I'm going to be with. So it's like, over time, that psychological damage, or that psychological thing that they were trying to implement onto the next generation, I guess it has gotten to us finally, to where we have now socially segregated ourselves willingly, if that makes sense.
Interesting. So how did you handle the whole George Floyd thing?
That's actually a good one. Honestly, I was outraged. Why? Because of media.
Sure.
I was, man, the media was putting so much out there. And this was mind you now, this was a time where people were glued to their TVs because of COVID. That's when it first started, COVID-19. So this was a time when people were so glued onto the TV and the news. It's like, man, I'm already on lockdown, and now I'm seeing a George Floyd, so I'm outraged. I'm like, man, I hate the police. I'm giving what the media was trying to push out. I'm feeding the persona that the media was pushing out. So I'm like, man, I hate them. I want to do something. I want to do something myself. And I knew good and well myself. I'm like, that's not how I really feel. That's just something I've seen and now feel that type of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a support system that you can, talk to people as you were going through those feelings of anger or rage? Do you have your parents? Did y'all talk about it? Do you have friends? How did you deal with that?
Truly and honestly, I never really had like real sit downs and talks about real stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like it might be like little chats, like, what I mean? Like little side conversations that might come up, but it's never like a real actual sit down and let me talk to you about this. You know what I mean? It was, so honestly, to answer your question, nobody, sir.
Well, I appreciate your honesty there. So let's shift gears a little bit. So you're going to school for radiology. So why did you choose that field?
Well, I chose radiology because I had tore my ACL playing football in 10th grade. So when I had went to the actual radiologist and they scanned me up, they looked at my my ankle, my knee, and they scanned it. And I was just like so impressed and fascinated on how they were doing it. And I was like, man, that's something I like, you know what I'm saying? Just to hook people up and scan them and stuff like that. It's really, really kind of fascinating to me. It's like, wow, you really get to see the inside of somebody, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, that's something I really want to get into. So that's what drove me to get into radiology.
So in a perfect world, what would you be doing as a career long term? What you say you like the whole idea of radiology? Did you have or do you have other dreams of something else you might want to do, or is radiology your thing?
Truly and honestly, I do have dreams of other things I want to do. I'm very, very passionate in architecture. I love architecture. I love architect. And I always wanted to be one, but I was just always so hard. I was never good at CAD. CAD is the computer software that they use to create all the designs and stuff like that. I was never good at it. But as a child, I was always so good at just building Legos and putting things together, disassembling stuff, and then figuring out how to put it back together. And it usually goes back together all the way, you know what I mean? So that was always my dream and passion, was to be an architect. And that's kind of where I see myself going towards.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. I don't know. Only time shall tell, and only the way I prevail in life will tell. Put it like that.
Well, you're still extremely young. You got lots of time to figure it out. But like yourself, I absolutely love architecture. One of the things that just fascinates me the most, my wife and I, we love to travel, and so going to places like Europe, and seeing these buildings that are 800-900 years old, and just looking at the Notre Dame Cathedral that took 200 years to build. Just thinking about that, it's like, wow. And we forget that this country is just a little over 250 years old. But you're going to Europe and you're seeing these 800, 900-year-old buildings and the architecture and how the technology has changed, and it's just fascinating to me. I like yourself, I love architecture.
Indeed.
So let's jump into your book. So you wrote a book called Overlooked Truths, a wake-up call to society. First of all, tell me about that title.
So what's funny is that title came up from if I'm not mistaken, 3 other titles that I was originally going to name it. So I always knew I wanted Wake Up Call to Society, but I never knew I wanted Overlooked Truths or Wake Up Call to Society. I never knew I wanted all that. So as I was writing and writing, as I kept writing, I kept realizing how much my book was such an awareness type of book, and how much of an impact it can have to a society as a whole. So I was like, you know, that would be a great title. Overlooked Truths, a Wake Up Call to Society. And that's what it became that day. And I was like, that's perfect. Perfect. And that's what made it.
Now, I'm curious, what triggered you to want to write a book in the first place?
So honestly, like the title said, a wake up call. It was a wake up call for me. Like I was just sitting outside one day, and I don't know if I don't know if you guys are religious, or you religious, or whoever's watching is religious or not. But God just spoke down to me. It was just like, hey, get up and write this book. Like for the past, I want to say 3 weeks, I had this feeling of writing a book, but I just never sat down and never did it. You know what I mean? I never got that pen or paper or my computer and start typing away. I never did that. But that one day, it just hit so hard with me. I just stopped sitting outside and went inside and got the computer and started typing away. And that's literally how it started. Literally.
Now, books can be very healing and therapeutic too. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, as you were writing the book, did you learn anything about yourself as you were writing it?
Of course. As I was writing, I always kept having to read back and forth and back on what I was writing. So as I kept reading back, I was thinking, I was also, what's the word I'm looking for? I was also, looking back at myself as I was reading back at these chapters and these pages. I was like, man, I should really do some self-reflecting on my life as I'm reading this. So yes, it actually has. It made me be more aware on who I am as a person, as an individual. I'm like, man, this is, if I can give an example, I was going through a hard time in my relationship with my ex-girlfriend that lived in Georgia before I moved up here. And I was like, man, I don't know why I'm so obsessed with her. I don't know why, but as I was writing my first paragraph, not my first paragraph, but my first chapter, which is relationships, it goes in and I talk about how to build a proper relationship. You need a foundation. You need the cement, which is the foundation, and then that's when you build the house up, and then you get the roofing, and then boom, that's when you have your full house. So you need all those things to have a good foundation, and a good house. You know what I mean? And I was looking as I wrote those steps down, I was like, is she do we have this? Do we have that? Do we have this? Do we have that? And as I broke it down like that and looked at it like a pie chart, I was like, no. Why am I stressing myself so hard about an individual that when we don't even have, we barely even have the foundation. So we don't have the foundation. We don't even have a house. So that's when I realized my book has a true impact on any individual, no matter how many times you read it, no matter what chapter you read, no matter what you're going through, that book will have an impact on you.
Well, we're gonna jump into the chapters here in a minute, but so what was the most difficult part about writing it?
Honestly, motivation. Motivation. Honestly, I can say that, like, man, when I tell you motivation can come and go like that, I'm trying to tell you. So that's pretty much it. It was motivation. Mm-hmm.
So approximately how long did it take you to write?
If we minus 2 months of just slacking off, I want to say 4 months, but with the 2 months, 6 months.
Okay. So how did your friends and family react when you said you were going to write a book?
Truly, it was honestly the opposite of how most people would think a family would react and friends would react. But it wasn't really like, so like, oh, congrats. It was more so like people, my family was excited for me, but it wasn't the excitement and joy that I was thinking I was going to get. You know what I mean? Like whenever you write, whenever you do something, you're always thinking of this fantasized version of how you would think people will react to what you're doing. But as like you said, have I learned something from my book? Yes, again, this is another thing. Like I realized people are not always going to be excited for the things that you do. You know what I mean? Like it's just not. I mean, I don't blame them. Don't get me wrong. I don't blame them. But I had to realize that I was like, people are not always going to be excited for the things that you do and accomplish in life. You just gotta be your number one champ at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you have plans on writing more books?
Oh yeah, for sure. I actually started like I kind of started the kind of a beginning of my second book, but it's more so on the steps on what I want to do in it or what I want to write about. You know what I mean? Like I have all these ideas on what I want to write about, what I want to talk about, but it's like I need to formulate and I need to have a formula down for one recipe, if that makes sense. Like, you know what I mean? I have all these ideas for all these other recipes, but I need to have a formula down for one recipe. I just can't be having all these ideas down and not having your recipes. You know what I mean? It just hurts the mind.
Gotcha.
But yes,
Now, as a writer myself, I am just absolutely passionate about, I'll use the term personal development, personal growth books. That's the type of books that I write, which your book falls into that category. So I'm curious, who are some of the authors that you read, or who are some of the people that you admire in the personal development space?
Well, if I'm being honest, and I'm not trying to sound like I am that guy or whatever, but I truly and honestly haven't even read any other like authors' self-help books. Like I never, like mind you now, I only read like Diary of Wimpy Kids and stuff like that. But inside, I was always writing. In my mind, I was always writing. I was always writing in my mind, but I was never like writing on pencil and paper until I wrote my book. You see what I'm saying? So all those things I was saying and all the things I talk about in my book, that was all in my mind. That was all the things I was being sensory wise aware of, and just keeping it in my mind, and then finally writing down on pencil and paper, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. But see, that's what's called divinely guided inspiration. Divinely guided inspiration comes from that higher source. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But when you have the ability to take your thoughts and transfer them to something that's tangible, something that people can learn from and read from, I believe that comes from spirit. That's just the way I see it. So you simply listened. You listened to spirit, you followed spirit advice, and now here you've put together this amazing document to support and empower others. So from my perception, that has a lot to do with something bigger than yourself, which again, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but I think it's inspirational that you had the tenacity, the courage, and the willingness to trust yourself to take those thoughts and to formulate this thing called a book. That's very impressive. That's very impressive. Very impressive.
Thank you.
Now, with that being said, let's take a little dive into your content real quick. So you start off chapter number 1, which is relationships, and you've kind of expounded on it just a little bit. So was your relationship with your ex-girlfriend the primary reason you started with relationships in the book?
Honestly, no. It was actually a bunch of other exes that I was dealing with or had dealt with before over the course of my aging. And it all just formulated into relationships. Literally, it just all formulated into there, like from all the friends I had and seeing their relationships and being aware of it and stuff like that. And also with my parents and stuff. So it's like things like that. That's what helped formulate the title Relationships, Chapter 1.
Okay. So what's your current relationship status?
Honestly, right now, I'm single. I've been single for about almost like 2 years now. I've just been seriously focused and dedicated on me and just trying to do something for myself, for my family, and for the greater good.
That's awesome. So what are your thoughts about marriage?
Marriage, see me, I kind of find it overrated in a
Okay.
way. In a slick way, I kind of find it overrated because I feel like if you love somebody and are passionate about somebody, I don't think you need valves or vows and I don't know. I've never been to a wedding before. I never really been dealt with it, so I don't really know too much about it. But I mean, it's not something I'm really looking forward to. But I feel like I'm open to it if the person, the timing, and what basically the timing is going on right correctly.
So let's take the marriage license, the formality of marriage out of the equation. How important is it to you to find that special person to share life with?
uh, that's funny. That's very funny. I want to say that it was funny is I was literally talking to my brother earlier when we were emailing earlier about that. It's kind of important, but it's kind of not in a
Okay.
way. And it's odd for me. It's odd for me now to say that, knowing who I was 3-4 years ago. You know what I mean? but now it's I'm more so like I'm on a different level and channel in life and with myself, mentally and spiritually. It's just like, I don't know. I just feel like only time will tell. Only time will tell whenever that person arrives. Or I'm not saying I'm Cinderella and somebody has to come to me. No, not at all. What I'm saying is like I'm more so about mindset. It's like once I find that person has that mindset that I like. Basically, in my relationships chapter, I talk about values that matches like my values and what I kind of believe in, and it can also bring value to my life and knowledge or wisdom or whatever that is. Then that's when I'll be ready, if that makes sense.
So if that person were to show up, all the same values, all the same qualities, and there's just this connection. Now, again, you're young, so I'm not asking you to think about this tomorrow, but thinking long term. Again, I have come to believe, and again, as someone who's been blissfully married for the past 20 years or so, that relationships can be and should be exciting, fun, passionate, no drama, no fighting, because there's a difference between fighting and conflict. You can't have relationships without conflict. That goes without saying. You're always going to have conflict. But I believe in a relationship, you never have to fight, because fighting is about being right. And if you're willing to relinquish the need to be right and deal straight on with conflict, then relationships can be amazing. So with all that being said, I'm priming you here for your next book. So you're saying that someone who writes about relationships obviously has a lot of information about relationships, but you'll never get relationships until you're in one. You can write about them, you can talk about them, but until you're in one, you never really get the experience of being in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So you're doing the perfect thing. The perfect thing, first and foremost, is to develop a relationship with yourself. And most men aren't willing to do that. So pat yourself on the back. Taking the time to fully understand who you are, which is the foundation of all relationships. You talk about foundations for relationships, it always begins with you. So you're already doing that, which is awesome. I'm simply asking you to be open to the possibility that there are very few things in life that's going to bring you more joy, more happiness, more connection than finding the right person to be with. So you don't have to put it on your to-do list for tomorrow, but I can assure you from experience. See, I used to be the guy that when I first started writing and speaking, I used to do vision boards. You know what a vision board is?
Mm-hmm.
Or you put a vision board up and you put pictures of things that you want to create in your life. Well, I had this vision board. And on my vision board, I had a map of the United States. And on the West Coast, I had a picture of a beautiful woman. On the East Coast, I had a picture of a beautiful woman. And I had another picture of a beautiful woman in Europe. So in my little head, what I was envisioning was one day when I became rich, I was going to have a girlfriend on the West Coast. I was going to have a girlfriend on the East Coast, and I was going to have a girl in Europe somewhere because I love foreign languages. So I thought, man, that would be cool to have this girl in Europe that could speak French to me, right? So I had all these crazy ideas about these girlfriends, but then I had to be honest with myself. And I started asking myself some deeper questions. And that deeper question was, what is it going to take for me to find that one? Because if I'm trying to bounce 2 or 3 women at the same time, number one, that's too stressful. That's too stressful. But I wanted to figure out how it was possible for 2 people to come together to be truly happy with themselves. Because I have friends who've had really long marriages and they're really happy together. And so I had to pull those pictures off my vision board. I pulled all the pictures off and I wrote a soulmate intention. So I sat down, and this was back in 1993. And I wrote down what I wanted my soulmate to be like. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna do this because this is kind of cool. All right, so here's, I didn't plan on doing this, but this is too perfect. Let's see here, where is it here? Da, 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 da. All right, so now you got to remember, I was divorced. I was divorced for 15 years before I remarried. But after my divorce, I really struggled with relationships. And that was one of the reasons why I said I was going to have these women in different places, because I didn't know how to do relationships, if I'm honest with myself. So after doing my inner work like you're doing, got to understand what Michael Taylor was looking for, I sat down, and it was on May in 1993. And I wanted to write, it was actually, let's see, May 5th, 1993, I wrote this. And this is what it says. It says, my soulmate will be intelligent, physically fit, spiritual, and complete within herself. She will be able to receive all the love I have to give, and also able to give her love freely. She will be confident and centered and able to allow me the freedom to be who I am, and I will do the same. My soulmate will be emotionally honest and trustworthy and willing to become one with her spiritual equal. Together, we will grow and expand and support each other in becoming all we were created to be. She will have a great sense of humor, and we will spend hours just laughing and giggling and being silly. We will take life sincerely, but not seriously. She will love children and accept my children as her own. We will vow to make our relationship a commitment to God, and therefore create a bond that can never be broken. Every day will be an acknowledgement of how fortunate we are to have each other, and we will be committed to growing our relationship through eternity. We will experience lovemaking at the deepest, most intimate level possible, and each encounter will be an expression of our deep love for one another. We will travel the world together and experience all the wonders of God's great creation called Earth. It will be the joining of 2 complete souls coming together to unite in the love of God. So that was my vision. I wrote it down back in 1993. It took me almost 20 years, but I found that person exactly the way I wrote it. I mean, again, I was married. I have 3 kids. My current wife, who is obviously not the mother of my children, she loves my kids just like they're her own. They get along great. She and I get to travel the world. And so my point here is that relationships are really important. And all the other stuff, the careers and all that stuff are great. Mm-hmm. But I have come to understand the best thing that we'll ever do for ourselves is, first of all, do our own work to know who we are. Correct. And then find that person to share life with. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on relationships.
I like that. That was very good. I like that.
So let's jump to chapter 2 in your book, and you talk about exposure. Give us a little brief summary of what that's about.
So exposure mostly talks about what people are being more so, well, excuse me for using the title in the sentence, but being more exposed to in the daily life. For example, social media. Most people are exposed to the negative side of things, no matter if they want to be exposed to it or if they like don't have a desire to be exposed to it. If I said that correctly, either they want to be exposed to it or they don't want to be exposed to it. But no matter what, you're just always going to be exposed to it because there's so much of that negative energy and nothing comes good from social media. That's how I look at it. Honestly, truly, honestly, nothing good comes from it. For real. Like nothing does. Nothing positive comes from it. It's just more so on the negative end of things. And honestly, it can be used for good. It has potential for good. But it doesn't go like it doesn't go that way. It's sad to say, but it just doesn't go that way with this society. This society doesn't use the things that are meant to be good or can be used for good. They just don't use it that way. They just prefer to abuse it and obstruct it, you know? So
exposure is about the negative impact of the media and social Correct. Media. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about chapter 3, body shaming. Oh, I don't want to hear about that. Give me a little background. What's that about?
So body shaming, well, while growing up, I always like heard about body shaming and people always like bashing big girls. And even I can admit when we're younger, I ain't gonna lie to you, like when we were in kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, even, you know what I'm saying? We all looked at that person like, oh man, they real thin or they real big, you know what I mean? Like that's always been a thing. But what were you saying? Oh, but
go ahead.
Oh, as I grew up, I realized I was like, judging somebody by their weight, it doesn't make any sense to me, because why would I judge somebody by their weight when I can just judge them by their mindset? You know what I mean? Like you can meet some incredible big people. It doesn't matter about their weight, but they're just people. You know what I mean? So if I just look past the whole thin or the whole weight thing and get to know them as an individual, that's all that matters. So that's what that chapter entails and talks about just not really judging people. And if you want to change yourself, don't listen to these influencers on these social media platforms. Especially these ones advertising these body weight loss stuff. Right. 9 times out of 10, they literally already had something done to themselves, or they just naturally already built that way. So it's like you got to be very careful with what images you allow to affect you as an individual. Yeah. And you know, images can really and truly affect the individual's inside and mental mind, mental self. Seriously.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about self-isolation.
So self-isolation, that was more so a chapter. I kind of call that one more so a chapter about myself. That chapter, it more so deals with how I kind of went through self-isolation, but through a third person point of view. You know what I mean? Like I talked about how I kind of just cut myself off / limit myself to other individuals, i.e. my family members, friends, work colleagues, you know what I mean? Like I was very to myself, very closed in. And as I was closed in that chapter, I talk about all the advantages of being self-isolated did for me. I'm not saying that an individual has to do these things.
Right.
You do these things. This is what happened to me. This is what I had experienced and seen. Possibly this is what you can experience and see as well, and or more. You know what I mean? So that's what that talks about.
And chapter 5, which I think is the work that I do, the focus that I put is self-education. So what do you mean by self-education?
Man, that one of my favorite chapters, indeed, one of my favorite chapters, because self-education, honestly, I couldn't have wrote this book without this self-education, this self-knowledge I have provided for myself. I'm talking from YouTube. Again, these platforms are out here to be used. They can be used for negative and positive things. I use these platforms like YouTube. What else? Everybody uses Google. I use those things for positive things that can help build my knowledge, help me grow as an individual. You know what I mean? I don't use these platforms to slow me down or affect me as an individual. So with self-education, it talks about how people need to be more willing to learn for themselves than in a school building. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to sit down in a school for X amount of hours to learn their schedule and their agenda. You can learn, you can teach yourself new things yourself by yourself. You don't need a school to teach you things. Literally just get up and learn. You have resources, use them. YouTube is the biggest resource to learn how to self-do things. If you never know how to do anything, go to YouTube. I'm like, if you're on, like, because honestly, the later generation, which will be what generation out now, Alpha, Generation Z,
Probably.
Yeah, the millennials, I believe if that's the correct term. They're kind of like us too, us Gen Zs. They're kind of on the more so technology savvy side as well. So they're kind of on that slow boat, might I say, as well as us. That society has kind of put us in this big ball, of together. So that's what that is.
Gotcha. So self-education, and then there's self-awareness. What's the difference?
So self-awareness is more so talking about being more aware of your surroundings, being more open-minded to new things, and not being so closed into just how you perceive things. You know what I'm saying? Like don't be so quick to shut somebody off from what they have to say. You never know. You might learn something from them. Don't think because you have more knowledge than them, or you may be more aware than them, that you can't learn anything from them. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. And what about self-mastery? There's the key.
Self-mastery, it goes into talking about how to develop key skills to master / harness your inner self, to control your inner thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. Just these little things that you can do to help practice. I mean, that you can practice to help you out as an individual. You know what I mean? It's not things that I'm saying are guaranteed to help you or work. These are things that you just have to try on your own for you to see if they work for you. You know what I mean? That go with your flow.
Gotcha. What about time and energy? What's that about?
Two of my biggest things that I just very cherish: time and energy. I don't like wasting people's time. I don't like my time being wasted. I cherish my energy, and I cherish who I give it to. And when I tell you, if you put one toxic or just one individual that is just not meant to be in that environment into an environment that is very how should I say, tranquil, man, man, it can turn a tranquil environment real toxic, really, really fast. So that's why I say you have to be really careful with who you hang around, because you feed off of that energy. You know, like when people like to go out to clubs, they like to feed off that rowdy energy. They're like that, the music, the lights. You know what I mean? Like it's that energy that they're feeding off of that they like. You know what I mean? So with me, I'm not more so into that type of stuff. So that would be draining of my energy and also my time. So I'm like, I could kind of be doing more better things. And this is kind of not my style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, got it.
That's what
Got it. And last but not least, a new view. What's that about?
So a new view, it talks about it kind of is the closure of the whole book. So it goes in and it's basically like, it basically talks about, it basically kind of makes the reader reassure themselves on what they read, put it like that. So it makes them, it asks them a question. It says like, from what you have read, from after all these chapters you have read and all these things that help you be more aware of yourself and aware of these things that go on with yourself, what have you learned? What have you taken away from it? And what can you grow and can learn from? You know what I mean? So that pretty much goes into, and that's why I named it that title. I named it a new view, because I want people to see if they have a new view on their life, because it's about them. So really just themselves and how their life is going. You know what I mean? Just a brand new perspective.
Got it. Got it. Wow. Well, again, I am absolutely impressed with you, my young brother, what you're doing. I'm excited to see what's going to happen for you next, because I can assure you, I can sense that you're going to go places. You're the type of person that I created this show for, so that people can see the positive aspects, especially of young Black men. And you're the youngest person I've ever had on the show. And again, you just came across intelligent. You obviously know what you're talking about. You're passionate about what you're doing. And you are definitely a role model for young people. So again, man, I just want to pat you on the back for the amazing job that you've done. Now, how can people find the book if they want to buy it? Is it available yet?
So it's only available on Amazon and Walmart.
Okay.
I self-published it through KDP. So unfortunately, it's not going to be out on the other like mainstream stores and stuff like that. But my second book, it will be on the mainstream stores and stuff, and also on Amazon. But for right now, it's only on Amazon and Walmart.
And do you have a website?
No, I do not.
Do not have a website. So what I'll do is I'll find a link on Amazon and I'll put it below the interview. So if somebody's interested, they can just click on it and go straight to Amazon. That works?
Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, perfect, perfect. All right, so now I want to give you an opportunity, excuse me, to share your closing thoughts out there for all the brothers who are watching this. Share some final words of wisdom, whatever's on your heart to say.
All right. Well, I want to first of all say thank you, Ms. Taylor, for having me on this podcast for sure. And I also want to say to the viewers, young or old, male or female, that are listening, never give up. Never give up. I know that might be very like old school, I guess cliche may be the word, of saying, but truly and honestly, never give up and never doubt yourself. Never doubt yourself. I just recently went into an interview for a job, for a corporate job. And at first I thought I was very underqualified. But as I looked at myself in the mirror, which I talk about in self-awareness, look at yourself in the mirror, reflect on yourself. I reflected on myself and I looked at myself. I was like, I got this. I can do this. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid about, because you're willing to go up there in front of these people, take the time and energy to go up there and sit there and talk to them and basically persuade them and give them this persona that you can fit this job role. You got it. Only they can tell you no. Only they can turn you down. But if you turn yourself down, you already lost. you already lost.
There you go. It's all about courage. It's about having the courage to step into who you truly are. Recognize that you deserve to be there. You are bringing something to the table. So it takes that confidence. And I get a sense that you're a very confident young man, and that's pretty inspiring, to say the least. So, Kyle, I just want to say, man, continued success in everything that you're doing. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Once again, I'll be putting this on my YouTube channel, and I have a link below it so people can access your book. I wish you continued success in everything that you're doing, my brother.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Seriously, man.
All right. So the book is Overlooked Truth, A Wake-Up Call to Society by Kyle Jones. Make sure you put that on your reading list. You'll be inspired. We'll see you next episode. Take care.